Welcome to Urban Monk TV. You know, my dad taught me that one should never even joke about pointing a fork tube at another man, so don't take that too seriously. Kind of a mishmash this week. I had gone on Instagram and asked whether or not we should work on some wiring or put the carbs together or rebuild the fork tubes. And it dawned on me, and thank you for those that weighed in on Instagram and gave your opinions on that. It dawned on me that the fastest path to having a roller here would be to do the fork tubes. So I think that's the direction I'm going to go. But there's still all this miscellaneous stuff that needs to be done along the way. So, you know, I got to polish this, and I've got to turn the engine over, put some fogging oil in there. I got to put the starter in it. I got to paint the rear swing arm, which is the only swing arm. Lots to do. Let's do it. One of the first things I'm going to do with these forks is just remove some of this surface rust that built up where the triple clamp holds on to it. I'm just going to use a little Scotch-Brite real lightly, but even where I used this Scotch-Brite, I am going to scratch the chrome, and so I'll have to go back and polish that. So I'm being gentle. I'm not overdoing it here. Just want to get a little off. Unless you don't care about nice shiny surfaces. You might say, well, the triple clamp's just going to go right back there, so why do you care if it's scratched? And the answer to that is I plan to lower the front end just a bit, maybe an inch or so, and I'm not going to have the triple clamp on the same place on these tubes as it was before. So this rust would show, and these scratches would show. But again, I think just a little metal polish will clean that up nice. So to take the top cap off, just to crack this, I put it sideways in my vice grip so that I've got a better grip, you know, more surface area here, so I don't have to put so much pressure clamping down on this tube. You don't want to warp the shape of this tube. And changed. And then just to crack it, once I have it cracked a little bit, then I can change my orientation and just grab it lightly. But the point is, don't turn a round shape into an egg or oval shape. And then as I loosen this up, I'm going to put downward pressure on it. There. It popped up. It's not a ton of pressure, you don't have to go crazy on it. But just be careful it doesn't come popping off of there. And our spring comes out, and so does our oil. This is just the top spring. Surprised at how clear this oil actually is. But how little there actually is. There is a spacer or a washer between the two springs. You can set these parts down on a towel in order. It has a very nice organic smell to it, although it's not the worst I've ever smelled. But old motor oil can get real funky. It is dead dinosaurs after all. And while that one is draining, I'm going to pop the cap on the other one and we'll drain them both. I put them both in the vise and I'll just let them drain a little while I paint some parts outside. So at the bottom of each you have these bolts with the Allen, why can't I not point, with the Allen head on it, and they're in tight. Couple different ways to get these out. One way is to reach in here with a long tool. The service manual has a specialty tool for this, and I can't even remember how many millimeter, but it's a hex head, male that goes into a female hex and an inside tube in here, and you hold that and then you can just wrench the other side. The other way to do it is to just give it fast, rapid impacts from an impact wrench, and then you don't need that tool. So, but they do put Loctite on the bottom, and you won't be able to just do it with a wrench. It's just going to spin at best. I'm going to turn this around so you can see better, and then I'll just do the I'm going to do the impact method. And then I'm just going to hold the tube. I'm taking my hand and squeezing, and as I do, I'm driving the tube that way to put kind of a pressure on those threads, if that makes sense. And there it goes. You can feel it release. There it went. Easy peasy. Okay, took the dust cap off. So there's that inner tube. Do I have any more oil? Yeah, a little. Not too bad. And there is a piece still remaining down there. Be careful you don't lose that. And this guy will now drop out from the top. And let me show you what we have here. Okay, so going from bottom to top. This is the absolute bottom. There's a little spring here with this little plastic washer around this tube assembly. Then this long spring, a washer, and the top spring and the cap. There is also inside, oh sorry, I'll show you. There is also down in there, that little spacer. It seems that my bolt is held to that spacer right now, and it's just kind of stuck in there. Things look clean, so at least down there they do, not up here at the top. But we'll get that cleaned up. And if that doesn't come out of there, it's not the end of the world to me. I'm just going to go ahead and put the parts back together with it. But it'd be nice to get that bolt out of there because I need to put some thread lock on it. So I'm going to have to find something to reach down in there. I think I have some all thread that would reach. I've got a really long 3/8 socket extension. I think, yeah, there I got the bolt out. And yes, there was some kind of thread lock on there. And now I got that spacer out of the bottom of there. So notice that there is a taper on this thing. The taper goes up. This goes down. That's all of your fork components. I should have mentioned the Allen size for that bottom bolt is a 6mm. And now to get this seal out of here, we got a simple snap ring that is a mess. Get that cleaned up. And then there is like a top washer here that's also a mess. We got to get cleaned up. And you just want to make sure that you're cranking on the seal and not scratching the aluminum housing, because that is your surface you're going to seal against. There it comes. Nice and easy. There. And I did not scratch that surface in there. And same thing on number 2. There. Icky. It's coming. Nice and easy. And again, just be careful of that back surface. I'd rather do that than be in so deep that I scratch that inside surface. There it comes. There we go. And I'll just clean this up, and again, a little carb cleaner down in there, and I'll Scotch-Brite inside for this corrosion, smooth that out. So I do want to say that this is the kind of place where Scotch-Brite is my favorite. Essentially, I want to hone this out. This is pretty smooth, but this is corroded and rough. And so you can't get a good rubber seal against a rough surface like that. And Scotch-Brite will remove this corrosion on the top, and it will remove some of the aluminum, but it's very gentle, much more gentle than an emery or sandpaper would be. Okay, this is not part of a fork rebuild, but I'm going to polish these, so diverting away from the fork rebuild process and going into the polishing process, which you guys know pretty well from my other videos. So one thing you never do, even though it's the most efficient way to sand this surface, is to use a motion like this, but if you have a YouTube channel, then you should never ever do it this way for obvious reasons. So I've got one of the fork tube lowers sanded, just the initial sanding with 600 grit. Got to do the second one now. One little interesting tidbit. I'm right-handed, And most of the sanding I'll do with my right hand. But as some of you may have picked up, I'm also a drummer. Maybe some of you are drummers or aspiring drummers. If you happen to be right-handed, it really doesn't matter. Just whatever dominant hand you have. When you're doing things like this, use your, I'll call it the non-dominant hand, because you're building, neurons and connections in the brain with the nerves. And I've been doing this for many years, decades now, where I force myself in certain activities to use the non-dominant hand, and it helps me in my drumming, because you need that weaker hand to be able to come close to or equal the strong hand for certain things. I have a particular aptitude for playing a groove called the shuffle, which a lot of drummers struggle with, especially younger drummers. New drummers. Age doesn't make any difference. And I attribute my ability to play that groove so well in part to things like this. I've really worked on my left hand. So while this is not a movement I would use in drumming, maybe other than playing jazz with brushes or something, it still helps. It builds up dexterity in the non-dominant hand. For the rest of you, that's going to be really boring. Okay, 600 done. Get my shadow out of the way. On to 1500. Okay, the bottom one is at 1500. It's been sanded with 1500. Top one was last sanded with 600. So you can start to see the difference as you go up. Next is 2000. Got a fresh pack right here. I would estimate I have an hour and 15 minutes into both of these at this point. Maybe a little longer. It goes a little quicker as you go up in the count on your sandpaper. I got these smile sanded as good as I'm going to get them. On to polishing. Don't forget that you have these little, I'll call them flanges or caps that hold the axle onto the bottom here. And they're aluminum, and there's about a ½ inch worth of aluminum that you're going to see pretty prominently. And it's not going to look good if you've got unpolished caps right next to polished lowers. So we got to sand and polish these little things too. So I just want to take a second to thank everybody who has subscribed ever to my channel. But a bunch of you have come on recently, and I did cross the 1,000 barrier recently. So 1,000 subscribers. And I'm just absolutely thrilled about that. I started this project, over 2 years ago now, when I blew up the piston, put a hole in the piston on number 4 on an extremely hot day on my way back from the Distinguished Gentleman's Ride here in Los Angeles, and limped the thing home on 3 cylinders with a lot of smoke billowing out behind me. And had this idea that, okay, if I got to rebuild this thing, let's have some fun. I want to learn how to do video editing better, and I want to build something that can be, like an heirloom in my family. Not that anybody else in my family rides, but hey, electric scooters are here, so maybe. And in that time, I've noticed that styles have changed, and a lot of the bikes coming out now are more scrambler than classic cafe racer style. And I'm committed to this. I think a classic cafe racer is a very cool style that is not ever really going to get old. kind of like blues music. It is what it is, and it's always good if done well. And what's your opinion? Leave a comment. Are scramblers the thing, and cafe racers are going the way of the dodo, giving up the ghost, and not really a thing to be done anymore? Or do you think cafe racers are classics forever and will always have a place? Curious. I like reading the comments. So thanks, guys. Let's buff. Ooh, pretty. I don't know why I'm talking like an 19th century Western prospector, but that looks pretty nice. And now I'll be a slave to keeping these polished the rest of the time I own this bike. But it's so beautiful. I think it's worth it. I don't know. You guys might say, why didn't you spray paint it like you did everything else? Well, because what makes certain finishes cool is contrast with a different finish. It's kind of like if you're gonna wear plaid pants, then don't wear a plaid shirt. So I did it off camera, but I also did the upper tubes with the aluminum polish just to put a little shine on them. So I think these things are looking pretty good. Happy with it.